Time now for, I think, what's going to be a very interesting TNA. In Sandton this morning, Ndoro is joined by Mosebenzi Zwane, the Minister of Mineral Resources, to discuss the revival of the mining sector, its business viability and ensuring job security. Peter, a very good morning to you and to everybody attending the briefing and your guests.
Leanne, thank you very much indeed, and a very good morning to you if you're watching across South Africa on SABC2, and the many people watching across the continent on Channel 404 and DSTV. Thanks for joining us for this, the latest in the series of New Age Business Briefings, brought to you by the SABC, and today very kindly sponsored by JIC Mining. And mining is actually what's in focus today. The mining sector has, I guess, been a troubled sector, partly because of the global economic conditions and commodity prices slumping, and so we've seen a number of mining houses struggling literally on the margins, and some actually even failing, and that's come with threats to jobs. And the future at the moment is one that needs to be negotiated and solutions found. There's a mining endeavor that's taking place next week in Cape Town, and ahead of that we're very privileged to have the new Minister of Mineral Resources to talk to us, and he's joined by the acting DG at the department, and we'd like you to be part of that conversation. If you have thoughts, if you have concerns, if you have issues in any part of the mining sector, today's a conversation that you need to be part of. At Morning Live SABC, hashtag TNA BizBrief are our Twitter platforms where you can share your thoughts with this audience that's here in Sandton, just north of Johannesburg, and that's where we're coming to you. But let's introduce our panelists that are going to be leading us in this conversation, and I'd like to start with the Minister of Mineral Resources, the Honourable Mosebenzi Zwane. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter. Let me say good morning to the viewers at home and those that are with us here.
Fantastic. And next to you is the acting DG, Department of Mineral Resources, Mr. David Msiza. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Peter, and also thank you to the viewers and also the colleagues that are with us today.
All right, and sitting next to you is an empty chair. That's not a ghost miner. There's going to be someone sitting there in a short while. And we've got analyst Clive Ramathibela-Smith. He's on his way, and we just want to use him to give us a perspective as an analyst of what markets see and think about the markets themselves. But Minister, let me start with you. You're still fairly new in the job. September, I think, you got appointed. And so probably now you've just gone through Mr. Ramatlodi's notes of what he was working on and started to form some thoughts of your own. What have you seen? What's the state of play at the moment?
Well, thank you, Peter. Let me say I'm humbled to take over from my predecessor. He and other predecessors have done a solid foundation, which I found when I came there, and I am taking from that foundation moving forward. I came at a time where the industry is faced with challenges. As you have said, commodity prices at their lowest. That is a test that we need to pass. Just before he left, he had some retreats and agreements with stakeholders, agreements which I'm beginning to implement. When I arrived, after engaging, I then took a view of an open door policy that has allowed me to engage broadly with stakeholders, of right holders, ensuring that I listen to them and hear their views and move forward in resolving the challenges that are facing us, challenges like job losses in the main. And I'm sure as a collective we'll be able, with time, to deal with those challenges. They are not insurmountable. 2016 is going to be a tough year, a year which will require us not only to talk, but to put actions that will take the industry forward.
Okay. Mr. Msiza, you've been at the department for quite a while now, so you've seen a lot of the trends and some of the big issues play out. And perhaps if you could just give us an overview of what you see as some of the big things that we're going to need to deal with in the short and medium term, perhaps.
Thank you once again, Peter. As the Minister has clearly indicated, I think in the short term, we have to continuously work together with our stakeholders, which we value their participation in our programs. And one of them is on job losses. I think for us it's very important that we continuously work together. We've came up with a declaration on saving jobs, and it's very important that we really implement that. And secondly, for us, which is very important, is also the issue of transformation. We have to continuously look at that and how we work together on that. And lastly, also the issues of health and safety. They continue to be on the fore, although we are seeing some encouraging trends, but we have to ensure that at least we improve the health and safety levels.
All right. Well, let's start to try and unpack some of these issues. Minister, have you been able to do anything in the last few months? What have you been able to get your teeth into and say, look, this is what I've achieved in my first 5 or so months?
Well, I've met with a number of CEOs of the primary right holders, engaged with them in terms of my view and what I found in the department, issues like what the acting DG has said, transformation, issues of job losses, and the mining charter. I was not happy about what we have achieved in terms of the mining charter. I've even gone overseas in engaging with some of the stakeholders, especially after the announcements that we'll be facing with some job losses. You'll know by now that CCMA estimates that the industry could lose about 32,000 jobs. And I'm pleased that during those engagements, we were able to save about 3,000 jobs, which were already at stake, forming part of the 32,000 jobs that are an estimate. And I think I'm pleased about what we have achieved so far. We will continue engaging. As you have said earlier on, we are heading to mining in Ndaba that will start on Sunday, where Africa's leaders will be there, stakeholders, labor, and we will sit down and map a way forward in reviving our industry and ensure that we remove the obstacles that were raised by the stakeholders as we were engaging. I am pleased that when we arrived here, there was an issue about the new minister, how is he going to handle issues? But stakeholders have come in handy to say, we are pleased with your open door policy. We have resolved a number of issues, including your Section 54s and other hurdles that the sector from time to time will be faced with.
All right. You've mentioned the mining charter and settling issues. I know the Chamber of Mines had some concerns about some of the clauses that were in there, particularly regarding this magical figure of 26% and ownership. And you were actually heading towards the courts. Is this something that you've been able to resolve? How far are we away from getting a final resolution to the mining charter?
We are engaging on that matter, Peter. We have resolved not to take the court route, but to try and resolve the matter amicably out of court, because I think that is in the best interest of all the stakeholders, including the department. By so saying, we do not mean that we are retracting from our view of black economic empowerment. That is what we are committed to. That is what we are saying all over. We are going with the stakeholders that help us to help the South Africans. This sector needs to be transformed. Black people needs to come in, not only as BEE. They need to be playing a crucial part as primary right holders also. And I think the time is right. We should be able together to implement that.
Okay. So as you negotiate and as you have these conversations, I guess one of the themes, and certainly for as long as I've been doing this program and looking at mining, one of the things that keeps coming up, Acting DG, is policy clarity. And I suppose when you're constantly in negotiations, there is no clarity. When will we get to a point, do you think, are we closer to policy clarity in the mining sector?
I think, as Minister indicated, it's very important that we acknowledge the importance of collaboration and continued consultation with our stakeholders. We will now and again have different views on different aspects regarding the legislation and other matters. I think the most important thing as well is that we believe that we all have the same objective, that is the sustainability of the mining sector and making sure that our people benefit from them. And as we constantly engage on that, and honestly so, we have to make sure that we do that, we deal with that. We had, when the MPRDA was also introduced at one stage, there was this conversation. In fact, we were discussing with one of my colleagues to say, over the last 10 years, since the MPRDA has been started, there has been those engagements. But we managed to go through it, but working together. We've also established the Mid-Debt Forum, where we come together and engage with these issues. And we would like to urge our stakeholders, we use these forums that the ministers also availed to make sure that if there are challenges, we deal with them. So we'll continuously do that as well, Peter. Thank you.
All right. Minister, transformation is a big thing for you. Soon after your appointment, I remember you talked about the possibility of buying assets discarded by mining companies to bolster the empowerment story. Is that still something that you want to do? And where's the money going to come from? How are you going to do this?
Well, Peter, one of the agreements during the bilaterals with stakeholders by my predecessor in job-saving attempts, there was an agreement that we should not sterilize mines that the primary holders wants to close. That gives us an opportunity to new entrants. That is the view that we are going to move on with. The current situation, as bad as it is, where some of the primary right holders would want to de-invest in some of the mines, we are engaging them not to sterilize the mines and continue bringing new entrants to the mines to ensure that the objective of creating black champions in the mining sector is realized. I've said earlier on that I am not coming to change what my predecessors have actually built. The notion of black mining champions is what I found here. I am using the current situation, depressing as it is, because we have to stand up as leaders and come up with mechanisms to ensure that we transform. The very same talked about issue of optimum coal and Tegeta is actually the step in the right direction, as you will know that Tegeta is composed of the majority black shareholders, giving us a beginning of what we talked about some 3 months ago, and we begin to see it happening, and we will continue pursuing the same route, engaging stakeholders, ensuring that we give young people, black South Africans, women and men, an opportunity to also form part of the economy in the mining sector.
All right. Well, once you've kind of opened the door for a line of thoughts as well, just to get some clarity, get it out the way, are you friends with the Guptas as well?
Well, that question has been asked many times.
Well, let's clear it up now and put it off the table completely.
As I came here, the media said this minister is not known. 3 months down the line, the same media is saying you are friends with a lot of people. I have engaged with many stakeholders. That will also include the Guptas. Let me put the record straight. I've met with them. I've engaged them. I've engaged other big mining giants, and I'll continue to do so in the future, because one of my responsibility is to attract investment in the country, and you can't attract investment in the country if you're not talking to people like the Guptas.
Did you fly to Switzerland as part of a delegation with them and to help them with negotiations?
Well, I guess the next question will be, were they sitting next to me? Did I eat lunch with them, and so forth and so on? What I'm going to ask from the audience and South Africans is that they should help me by dealing with pertinent questions that are actually pertinent to what I should be doing as a minister. As you get into the aeroplane, those who have been in the aeroplane will know that it is not your choice to say, I'm going to fly with this kind of particular people. What I know is that as I was in the plane, I never saw the Guptas. They were not seated next to me. But if they were in the same plane, I would still accept that.
All right, maybe perhaps to be more specific, have you ever assisted the Guptas and their businesses in any business transactions?
Well, I would not do that in any way. My job is to ensure that I engage with all the stakeholders without having favors. I will not favor any business person, whether be it Guptas and Julie so. But I will not hesitate to help, especially in instances like the Optimum Code, where a business was put in a business rescue, people going to lose jobs, 3,000 jobs, and I'm asked as a minister, what are you going to do with the job losses in the sector? I'll definitely get in and engage with stakeholders and say, can you resolve this issue and save jobs? That is my job.
All right, so you're saying that you haven't had any close ties to the Guptas other than what would be normal for any person. And I just want to get it off the table so that we're very clear and that it never gets asked again. The reports are that you've known them for a while, you helped them with a dairy farm in the Free State, and that you might have even assisted with the planes landing at Waterkloof. So if you could just deal with those two, and then we're done.
Well, let me say it will be important at some point that we clear the air in terms of the public perception when it comes to business people. Here in South Africa, if you look at the mining industry, the Guptas are not one of the giants in mining. I interact with a lot of giants, whether be it Exxaro, Glencore, Anglo, those are big mining giants. If you look at the percentage that the Guptas have in the mining, it's very minimal. And I can tell you that the Guptas has never been given any mining by government. What they have, minimal as it is the transactions between them and other mining companies. Coming to the issue of Friede Dairy, I'm happy that you have raised that issue. The irony or the bad thing about the issue of Friede and the media is that due to the bad publicity, we had investors, even as far as from India, which ultimately were moved away because of this bad publicity. I can report here that the program did move forward, but put it categorically clear that Guptas were never part of the deal of Friede Dairy. They were not there, they are not there. It's just a perception that must be put straight. And I can tell the public that should the Guptas have had an appetite in becoming part of the Friede Dairy because we wanted investors, would have considered them as any other investor would have been considered.
And then finally, the planes. Did you have anything to do with that?
Well, as a MEC of local economic development in the Free State at the time, people should know that I did not have powers to actually can deal with the matters of landing of planes in another province, like Gauteng when I stay in the Free State. I would request the public that let's deal with facts. We should be able to separate facts from propaganda and tarnishing of people's names. Like in this case, I do not know that where that story comes from. I was not part of it, and it keeps on coming. And the public should know that there is no basis in that story.
Okay, all right. And people at home, you may be wondering why we keep asking these questions. And I think it's important that we set it clear that, a minister, he holds an important position, and that he shouldn't be influenced unduly by any businesses or private citizens. And so we just wanted to make sure where we stand there, and that's why we pushed on these questions. But when we come back after this break, we'll continue the conversation about the mining sector and some of the challenges that we're facing and how we may be able to overcome them. And we've got a number of people in the audience, from Union to the power utility, to get their thoughts as well, because a lot of what we're talking about affects them and ultimately affects you. Stay with us.